Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this Navigator demo. My name is Nikolai Lundy. I'm the Director of Education and Partnerships at SASB. I'm really excited to spend the next several minutes taking you through our new SASB Navigator and answering your questions and getting a sense of where you think we can continue to further improve and update what we have. So this is mainly going to be a live demo where I'll be showing you through the tool, but in the beginning I want to take us through just a few kind of overview slides. This is typical for these sorts of webinars, but we always get the questions, will there be a recording distributed? Yes, so you'll be able to see that and pass along if you want. And if you have questions about what happens, you can either visit our website or you can send us an email. We're monitoring that all the time and making sure that we can answer any questions that you have. So let's take a look at the agenda really quickly. It's going to start by demoing the new SASB Navigator. We're going to spend probably about 30 minutes or so poking around, showing you how it can help you do some really interesting things in understanding material ESG factors. We're really excited to show you. We're also going to be highlighting some of the things that we've heard from some of our power users or some of the things that we know people are doing with the Navigator. We'll also show you how you can customize it. So there are some ways in which there's a lot of information in there. This is the culmination of really 4 years worth of research that is continuing to be ongoing, continuing to be updated. And so there's a lot there, and we're going to help you figure out how to zoom in on the information that you really want to see. And we're going to give you a little bit of a peek at some of the potential future upgrades, and we want you to weigh in. We want to get your feedback so that we can respond to the things that you think would be most helpful. So I'm going to start with a couple poll questions, and this is so that we can get a sense of who is on the audience, who is on the webinar. As we go through the demo, I'm going to try and be responsive to who we have. So I'm going to launch this first poll question. It should be showing up on your screen before long. So it will give you the opportunity to answer for a few different questions. So let's see if we can get this showing up here. All right, so you should be able to see it now, and you can answer 5 options. Are you in investment analysis, asset management, consulting, corporate sustainability, academia, or maybe another function altogether? So we'll give you just a couple seconds to answer, and then we'll take a look at the results. Okay, so we've got almost everybody in, so I'm going to go ahead and close that down, and we'll take a look. So rather shockingly, we have a broad spread. At one point, a few seconds ago, it was 20% all down the line. And I don't know how we get that with this large of an attendee base, but I guess that just shows that we have a broad interest from a wide range of folks. So I will try then to make sure that we are giving all of those different perspectives an opportunity to see how to weigh in. So let's take a look at one other, let's do 2 more polls just really quickly. So this one is, did you use the old Standards Navigator? And that had just the SASB topics and metrics. And so go ahead and weigh in, and we'll take a look so that we know whether or not to cover those features or not. Okay, we have a lot of you who have voted, so I'm about to close it down, and we'll take a look. So the vast majority have not used the old SASB Navigator or the old Standards Navigator. That's great, so we'll be able to show you something new and make sure that we're not covering too much territory that you already know. So let's take one more look, and then we will kind of keep moving. And so this is, again, just to see who we have on the screen. Have you seen a demo of the new Navigator before? You can either use yes, no. If you don't know, then that's surprising to us, but who knows? Maybe there's some out there. All right, we've got almost everyone having filled that out, so we will close this and take a look at the results here in a sec. Okay, so the vast majority have not seen the demo before, so that's great. This is just really, thank you all for helping us with those polls. It just gives us a really good base on which to make sure that we can tailor the next several minutes to the audience. So let's go back to the main presentation. I'm going to assume that all of you know the SASB mission, so I'm not going to go into this and just kind of take that as the baseline assumption. If you don't, then we can circle back and give you more information later. But let's just jump right in. So we're going to take a look at the new Navigator, and it's really your one-stop shop for understanding material ESG factors. So from here on out, this is going to be a typical demo where there's no slide deck. We're just going to kind of be poking around and at the will of the internet gods. So hopefully everything cooperates with us, but it'll be kind of fun to see how it goes along. So this is where you can sign up for a free trial for the Navigator. So even if you have gone through this demo and you want to try it out for yourself, you can sign up for a free trial at our website, navigator.sasb.org, and it gives you just a little bit more information about what is included in the Navigator, some of the features, the different types of professionals that we've had using it and what they are using it for. Again, we saw early on the various types of folks who are on the webinar and information about pricing. So this is where you all get started, but we've already got an account, so I'm just going to go in, and it brings me to the home page once you're logged in. So the Navigator starts with aptly named an easy-to-navigate dashboard. It really all starts from this beginning home page where you've got the ability to poke around and look at the SASB standards, the evidence, the performance ranges, the disclosure information, topic alerts, the cross-sector search. Really everything can be explored from here. So we're going to delve into those in more detail. But everything can be accessed from this initial homepage dashboard. So some people come in and they are looking for trying to understand from a particular sector or industry perspective what are the material ESG factors, what has surfaced in SASB's research process. And so you can do that by just going down here, clicking a sector, clicking industry, and going that way. But a lot of people actually come in with an idea of a company or a set of companies in mind, and they want to just jump straight to that industry. So you can type in the ticker. In this case, I've typed in American Electric Power. It's an electric utility, large cap in the US. And so we can click this link to jump straight to that industry centralized homepage. And so when you need to know what the SASB topics and metrics are, it's really easy to figure it out with that kind of click of a button. This gives you an overview of the industry, but then as you scroll down, you see these are the topics that emerged from the 12 to 15 month process that SASB conducted to identify the sustainability topics most likely to have material financial impact on companies in this industry. And so you can quickly scroll through, see what the topics are, and read a little bit more about what is kind of captured by that information and what an initial overview of the justification for why it surfaced to the level of materiality. Now here's a little bit of a pro tip. We've had some people who really want to engage a little bit more deeply and understand this information more deeply. And so you can reach out to the SASB sector analyst. So if you go over here, click the sector page, it pulls up the overview. You can see the sector analyst. In this case, it's Brian. You've got the email address or the phone number to reach out. You can either ask questions or give feedback on what's in the standards. And if you are really interested in understanding who has weighed in with feedback in the past, what were the results that we got during our research process, all of those documents are available here, and you can just click through and get a sense. But most people are just really trying to understand what the topics and metrics are, and it's really easy to do and see that all in one place, industry by industry. But when you need to know how those topics impact financial drivers and what's the evidence of materiality, it's just as easy to click over here and do the evidence tab. And so this shows you a drilled down analysis where you can access over 9,000 pieces of curated evidence. This is the information that was most significant, most meaningful as we were going through and developing our provisional standards. So you can get an overview for each topic in every industry. What are the high and medium impacts on various financial drivers from revenue and assets and liabilities, the risk profile, everything has its own unique impact on financial drivers. And then you can scroll through and see what is the evidence that surfaced as we were going through our process. And when you want to drill down and understand the evidence for yourself, you can click through all these little footnotes and even access the original source file for those who are really trying to delve into and get a very nuanced understanding of how a particular topic manifests in financial impacts for each industry. So all in one place, all easy to click around. Just a few clicks, you're able to get through this evidence, topic by topic, industry by industry, to understand that materiality case that much better and communicate that to your peers, communicate that to your clients, whatever the case may be. But when you want to know, all of this is in some way static. It gets updated periodically as we have new research coming through our process. But in an ongoing basis, you can also stay on top of the case of materiality. You can see the most recent details about new evidence as it emerges for every topic in every industry. So you can click over here to Topic Alerts. And our sector analyst, here's Brian again, he is constantly monitoring how is it that any given topic is kind of influencing the case for materiality, or new evidence is emerging in one way or another that's reshaping how to think about this topic and its impact on the industry. So it outlines the, again, original source documents. You get a little analysis, summary, and you can then click through and go to the document itself. Now there's a pro tip here that we have some people who are trying to stay on top of this news with as little effort as possible, and they have very specific industries or topics that they're trying to follow. So if you click this Change Subscriptions, it allows you to tailor the topic alerts to whatever you want. So in this case, I just have all the industries selected, but let's say you only care about a few industries. Let's say you're looking at the financials industry, you want to look at the asset management companies, you want to look at commercial banks, you're not as concerned about others, and you can just customize to what you want to see. But maybe you're not as interested in some SASB topics, and again, you can just choose whatever topics are most relevant to you, and you can get them emailed to you so that every Thursday you get a short digest of the summary and the link to the original source. So this is for those who really want to stay on top of how new evidence is emerging. But when you want to get a feel for the industry profile, what is common performance across the industry for a given topic in a given industry, you can see that at a high level with this performance range. And so we have right now a relationship with Bloomberg. I think that others are going to be emerging in the next few months. But they have provided data where we have identified where is it that in the Bloomberg terminal we have metrics that are either the same or very similar to the SASB metrics. And what is the industry profile? What's the average? What's the standard deviation, min and max? You know, sometimes there is the case where there's no data, and that's just a reality that we're facing in the industry, but it does help surface where you can work with companies or work with your clients to think about to what extent this is information that's worth collecting and reporting. But for those kind of pro users and power users who want to go and look company by company at the information, we've got in place a relationship with Bloomberg, and more data providers are going to be coming into the system after long, where you can pull up this Excel template. If you're a Bloomberg terminal user, you pull up this Excel template, and it allows you to type in a ticker, and it gives you the SASB filter, so that for that ticker, whether it's Apple or GM or whatever company you're looking at, you can see what are the SASB metrics or proxies for the SASB metrics, and what is 5 years worth of data for that company on those metrics. So you can filter out the hundreds and hundreds of data points that exist in typical data providers' ESG profiles and just look at the most material data points over the last 5 years. And so, like I said, this is available now for Bloomberg users, and other data providers are going to be coming online in the future. So those are for people who want to look at the company level as to what data is being actually reported. But if you want to see how that performance ranges from industry to industry, this is where you can start to do some interesting comparisons and see how this is being captured and what the industry profile looks like across several industries. So we were just looking at greenhouse gas emissions in the electric utilities industry. Well, let's take a look at how that performance varies across all of the industries where greenhouse gas emissions was identified as material. And so in this case, you can see industry by industry what are the range of performances, and you can just see that it pops up in multiple industries. You can scroll down and take a look and compare. Or let's say you want to just compare the electric utilities industry, and you want to see how performance on the different SASB topics varies on just that industry. So you can see air quality performance, you can see workforce health and safety, all the way down for all the topics. So the cross-sector search allows you to slice and dice and narrow down the information so that it just focuses on the industries or the sustainability topics or the financial drivers or the performance range or whatever element of the data that's most important to you. But let's go back because there's one final element of the Navigator that is really kind of most important, and that's thinking about what companies are already disclosing in their SEC filings. This is one of the things that we're most excited to show you. So I've gone back to our original company, gone to the state of disclosure, and we're going to take a look at this disclosure intelligence element. And so when you need to see what companies are saying about SASB topics, we've got over 4,000 companies. We've analyzed and captured 80,000 excerpts and surfaced that all in this disclosure intelligence element of the SASB Navigator. And so what this does, industry by industry, is gives you a profile of how companies are currently reporting on these material ESG factors. And so this is something that companies are using to benchmark themselves, consultants are using to think about how their clients fit in, investors are using to analyze to what extent the companies they're invested in or considering invested in are reporting on these topics. And so this is a process all powered. We've been developing this for over 2 years, and it's all powered by natural language processing algorithms that utilize machine learning to read actual 10K, 20F, 40F documents, identify excerpts related to SASB topics, and then give a quality score for those excerpts. Is it boilerplate, which we use as a term to describe generic language that it could be applied to any company. You can copy and paste it, and it doesn't give you any insights into one company over another. It could be company-tailored narrative, which gives you some insight into the specific company, but doesn't give you particular details as to how they're managing a particular opportunity or a risk. Or the most detailed kind of rating or quality score that we give is metrics-based disclosure, which gives you some detailed kind of quantitative, usually quantitative analysis of how they're performing on a given topic. And so we give you this profile. In this case, we've got 67 companies in the industry. We give you a profile of how they're disclosing. On greenhouse gas emissions, there's actually quite a lot of disclosure. 84% are disclosing. There's only 16% that have no disclosure. And there's a lot of company-tailored narrative, only a little boilerplate, and a little bit of metrics. But for other topics, you might see much more boilerplate, like in coal ash management. For some topics, like the community impacts of project siting, we're actually not seeing much disclosure at all. So topic by topic, you're able to get a profile for the industry. But let's look at a specific company. So let's look at American Electric Power. We've kind of been following them through this whole process. And you can see their specific disclosure quality, topic by topic. And if you want to see what they're actually saying, you just click the topic, and it pulls up the excerpts. You can read exactly what they're saying and scroll through and see how they're reporting in their SEC filings. Now, let's say you want to get the context for this statement. You can go straight to the source. You can go click this link, takes you to the Edgar database. You can pull up the 10K, and you can just find the statement and be able to read before and after and get a greater context for where this information sits. You can also delve into the company specifically and get a profile for that company. And so you can see how many excerpts are identified. You can see to what extent they're disclosing compared to the rest of the industry. So in this case, you see that, well, for community impacts of project siting, American Electric Power is not disclosing, but really only 4% of the industry is. That's maybe not as dramatic. You know, sometimes you see something like this where they're not disclosing where a third of the company or where a third of the industry is. But sometimes you see even more dramatic examples, and that can be really useful, whether you're a company or an investor trying to understand to what extent a particular company is an outlier. So I'm going to just pull up this example where there's no disclosure on coal ash management, but there's actually 80% in the industry that is disclosing. And so company by company, you can start to get a picture of how they are at least disclosing and making information available to the capital markets on how they're managing these material risks and opportunities. So you can just do this, again, for every industry. I've just looked at one company kind of through this whole life cycle, but all of the information for all of SASB's 79 industries, all of the topics, all the metrics is all captured in the Navigator. One thing that I want to point out about this disclosure intelligence piece is that this is still in beta. One thing that I mentioned is that this is based on machine learning, and so it's constantly getting smarter. And so we sometimes have users that look at a particular excerpt and they actually disagree with the way it's been rated. The algorithm has rated it as company-tailored narrative. There are some instances where people say, you know what, I think that's actually boilerplate, or I think it's actually metrics, or it's irrelevant entirely. That doesn't tend to happen. But by giving your own feedback and your own rating, the system's able to continue to learn and get that much more sophisticated. So we've already, in the last few months, seen it getting more precise and more effective at capturing disclosures. So let me see if we have any questions from those of you on the webinar, so we can start answering some of those before we go further.
We do have a couple questions that have come in. So right as we get into the Q&A period, I do want to let everyone on the webinar know that you can submit questions at any point. If you look at the panel on the right side of your screen, you should see a little module that says questions. We have had a couple come in already, so let's just dive right in then. The first one asks if we are able to very quickly demo again how the cross-sector search works for a couple more issues, example being water management.
Sure. Sorry for going through that quickly. So let's look at water management. And let's say you want to look at every industry, or if you only want to look at, a set of industries. Maybe you want to look at, well, services is practically actually not a good example. Let's say you want to look at resource transformation, which includes chemical companies and other companies that manufacture things. Or let's say you want to look at transportation and maybe non-renewable resources like metals and mining or things like that. So you can kind of pick the sectors, you can pick the industries that you want. And let's say you just want to see how water and wastewater management impacts financial drivers. Let's just pick that specifically. And so for those different sectors, you can see how water management was identified as likely material and construction materials. And these are the different types of kind of profile of financial drivers, where it's a bit different in the oil and gas services industry. It's a bit different in the coal operations industry. And so you can just scroll down industry by industry where the water and wastewater management topic was identified as material and what the financial drivers are. But let's say you are not as concerned about financial drivers, you just want to see the kind of aggregated evidence of financial impact, and you only care about one particular sector or one particular industry. You just want to see how water manifests across the entire profile. So you can get all of that evidence in one place. Again, you still have that functionality of being able to access the source links. And then the way to think about this is that you can do this for any sector. You can see the information you want for any industry, for any sustainability dimension, which is basically the ESG, environment, social capital, human capital, things like that. Any topic that we see in the materiality map, the disclosure topics that appear in the standards. You can look at the value impact only. You can look at value impact and accounting metrics. You can look at state of disclosure. So all of this kind of functionality allows you to pick and choose what information you want to see. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight. That's a great question.
So we have another question. How often will the underlying data or evidence be updated?
Also a really good question. So the topic alerts kind of add to the evidence in an ongoing basis. So I'm just going to show you, this is kind of, because I've subscribed to all the industries for the last 2 weeks, it's going to take a little while here to load, but it shows me all the information that's come up in all the industries that I've selected. So that evidence is updated every week. The under where you're going into a specific industry, so if we go into commercial banks, and you're looking at the evidence for financial inclusion, this underlying evidence is updated whenever we release a new set of standards. At least that's the plan right now. So we'll be coming out with the next set of standards in the end of the year, in either Q3 or probably Q4. So those will be updated as kind of probably longer life cycles. But then by clicking the topic alerts, well, in this case, there wasn't a new topic in the last 2 months, but you can kind of see how that evolves over time. And this is the case, that there's not always going to be new information that adds or subtracts or reinforces the case of materiality. We're very specific in trying to really sort through the news and only find the news that's most relevant. So sometimes you're not going to see a new topic alert for a given topic in a given industry, but aggregate level, it'll be updated every week.
Great. We have another question that came in. What's the scientific method or process used to approximate the financial impact, as there tends to be uncertainty around this?
That's a good question. So it's really informed by the process that we leverage to develop our standards. And so it's both evidence-based and market-informed. And so when we go through and identify the evidence of financial impact, so I'm just going to, again, kind of pick another industry and just go through. And so when we're looking at the evidence that we collect, we also are able to articulate a value impact. And so we've summarized this information and made it available to industry experts and the public periodically throughout our process. And so the feedback that we've gotten on the value impact has informed this ultimate financial drivers. And so it's really based on the evidence we see where has there been a specific impact in the past to cost of capital or cost of revenue, or is there a clear case that is likely to be at least worth considering. And then that evidence kind of gets shared with members of the industry, whether they're corporate professionals or investment professionals or others, to inform and refine our thinking. So this is also an opportunity where we don't actually get much pushback on these financial drivers, but if someone wanted to provide feedback, this is where they can click on the sector and send an email to the analysts. Actually, I guess and it just pops right up with your ability to email and kind of initiate a dialogue. So hopefully that answers your question. We actually don't get much pushback on the financial drivers. They're informed by the research and the evidence that we see where those financial impacts have already happened or very clearly could happen, and then the feedback we get from the public comment and the industry experts that we consult.
Great. So we do have another good question. Are the selected data downloadable for further analysis?
The selected data, it might be worth you clarifying. I'm going to kind of guess. So at least for the evidence right here, it's not that you can access, there's no export or download feature. That is actually something that we would like to ask about, to what extent people want that. So for the evidence or the financial drivers right now, you don't have that. If you're looking at the disclosure intelligence, we can make available, and actually we can work with, for large institutions or small institutions, anyone who wants to kind of license the information and port it into their own database through kind of a data file, we can work with them to do that. But just as an individual user being able to export it, whether it's the data you're talking about here, the excerpts, or the information, or maybe you're talking about the performance ranges. The performance range data is just available kind of in this screen. Now, if you do have the Bloomberg terminal, that gives you an Excel that you can access all the data exists in Bloomberg. And like I said, I can't tell you to which platforms that's going to be appearing on in the next few months, but there will be other platforms that make that available. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right, we have a couple of questions that have come in on kind of the logistics of subscription. So
okay.
First of all, what does the Navigator cost? And is the subscription annual, or is there a monthly option? And then finally, is there any sort of kind of enterprise or academic option for universities?
Okay, several questions there, but they're good, practical, in the weeds. So the subscription is an annual subscription. You get a trial, so you sign up for the trial, you get a poke around. If you, once the trial ends, you can either opt to continue, well, you either cancel your subscription or it continues for a year. It's $1,200 for a year, so you can more or less think about it as $100 a month. It is not monthly payments, it's just one upfront charge. Now, for enterprise users, if you have multiple users at one company and you don't want everybody paying with their own credit card, we can handle invoice payments. And if you have a larger number of users, there are volume discounts. So for 5 users or more, it's a 5% discount. For 10 users or more, it's a 10% discount. For 15 users, it's 15%. You can kind of see how this is going. But 20 users or more, it's 20%. Once you get to 27 users, there's just an unlimited annual license fee for $25,000 for as many users at an institution for one flat fee. So hopefully that answers those questions.
Great. So we do have two questions that can kind of be bundled, but the first, are these data based only on the SEC filings or drawn from other sources as well? And are those files, do they go back several years, or what is the time frame around those?
Great question. So for the performance range tables here that exist in the Navigator, it's just for the most recent year. We are actually working over the next few months to add multiple years worth of data. So that will become available. This data is informed by websites, sustainability reports, press releases, SEC filings, all of the different sources that Bloomberg uses. The Bloomberg Excel template gives you 5 years of data. In the Disclosure Intelligence app, these disclosures come only from SEC filings. And that's really based on SASB's mission. SASB's mission is to make information more comparable and higher quality in the reporting channels that investors and the marketplaces are used to through SEC filings. As you can see, and this is actually pretty typical, for most SASB topics, there's usually around 70 to 80% disclosure already. But the problem is there's a lot of boilerplate, there's a lot of company-tailored narrative. Even when they're metrics, you can't always compare one metric to another. And so SASB's mission is to really improve the ability to find useful, insightful data in SEC filings, because those become made available to the public through the EDGAR database, and then anyone can access it, and to improve the comparability so you don't have such variability in disclosures.
Another question we've received, do you only use U.S. companies as the basis for your data?
No. So for both the performance ranges, for the research that we did, and for the disclosure analysis, it's not just U.S. companies. We have focused on publicly listed companies. And so our evidence will often cite foreign headquartered companies that are listed in the U.S., or even sometimes private or other companies that, you know, the case for materiality at those companies is translated to public companies. For the performance ranges, I think that is primarily just publicly traded companies. And for the disclosure intelligence piece right here, also just publicly traded companies, but not just U.S. So we have 4,300 companies. We have found ways to capture a few more companies, so we'll be adding those, you know, a few more hundred in the next few weeks. And what we've done in our analysis is seen that when you look at companies listed in the U.S., it accounts for like 80% or so of all listed companies, 80% of the market cap, I think, for all listed companies in the world. So we do feel that we at least are able to capture a wide universe.
Great. So another question that came up, is the Navigator also listing the company's performance in different excuse me, assessment indices, for example, DJSI, CDP, MSCI, for example, those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We do not, you know, SASB's really not in the business of rating companies' performance. We do look at to what extent their disclosure is useful, but whether or not they are actually performing well or not, whether or not they're included in different ranking systems, we view that as outside the scope of our mission, which is just to improve the quality of disclosure and make it available to the marketplace through already used SEC reporting channels. So those other reporting and ranking and kind of indices, such as the Dow Jones Sustainability Index and others, serve a valuable role in the marketplace, but are kind of outside the scope of SASB's work, so we don't include them in the Navigator per se. So let's take maybe one or two more questions for now, and then we've got a few poll questions because we've gotten some feedback from people about what they would consider getting additional access to or additional features. So we want to get your feedback so that we can respond to what you would actually want to see. So do we have one or two more questions for right now?
Yeah. So let's go with this question. How can a company get on the database, for example, a mid-cap integrated oil and gas company? So I suppose just kind of what companies are included within the analysis of the Navigator.
So we have set up a tool that basically goes to the Edgar database, and if there's a 10K or 20F or 40F filing in the Edgar database, it should be in here. We have noticed a couple wonky instances where, because there's different share classes or different kind of corporate structures than what you typically see in an industry, that we've sometimes missed them. So those have been pointed out, and we're porting those in. But if this is a company that is reporting SEC filings that are available in the Edgar database, they should be appearing here. And if they don't, for whatever odd reason, we'll fix that as long as everyone lets us know. So it's not a matter of us choosing what companies to include or not include. It's really just about whether or not they exist in the Edgar database, and we can scrape them. Let's do a couple polls. We want to get a sense of what is going to be most useful for you. This is your chance to weigh in and give us kind of feedback on what would be most useful to you. And so I'm going to throw up a few different ideas that we have heard from some of our users already, and we want to get your take. So we're going to pull up a few polls, and so hopefully you're able to see that on the screen. This one is, which comparison would be more useful for you? So one is comparing two companies' disclosures side by side. So if you're thinking about, we were looking at American Electric Power, I want to pull up their air quality disclosure and I want to see it next to Duke Energy or something like that. So that's one comparison. The other comparison is, let's say you have a company's disclosure and you want to compare it to kind of an industry profile or industry leader. And so that will allow you to pull up American Electric and then kind of see it against some of the best disclosures in the industry. Or there's maybe other comparisons that we're not considering, and we'd love for you to type those into the chat box so that we can have those on record and tailor those in the future. So let's give you two different comparisons, or maybe some others that we're not thinking of, comparing two companies side by side or comparing one company to an industry leader. We've got some people voting. I'm going to give people a few more time to think about it and weigh in, and then we'll take a look at the results. Okay, last chance to weigh in. We are going to be making changes to the Navigator partly based on what we get from these polls. So hopefully you're willing to share what's going to be most valuable. So this is kind of an interesting analysis here. Clear leads that people want to compare one company to an industry leader. So that's good for us to know because I think that we'll be able to inform how we upgrade this in the next few months. So let's take a look at another one. We're going to kind of go through a few of these and then we'll pause. Which company import would be more useful for you? So we've heard some people say that I've got a list of clients that are in my consulting portfolio. I just want to be able to import those companies. Or I am analyzing a certain set of names for my portfolio, and I want to be able to import those and kind of take a look at how they appear in the Navigator. So this is basically, you could either import a list of companies to see the evidence, to see the topics, what appears in the SASB standards, just zeroed in for those companies, or the disclosure piece. You want to import the companies and see the disclosure ratings. Are they disclosing metrics-based or otherwise? So, or maybe there's another import that you would want to use, or another way in which you'd want to use an imported list. So think about it, weigh in, give us your feedback so that we can actually make changes that are useful to you. We've got Still several people who haven't voted, so I'm going to give it a couple seconds and then we'll take a look at the results. Okay. And again, if you have other uses, feel free to type those into the chat box so that we can take a look after the fact. So I'm going to close this, and we will see how many we have kind of weighing in and what we've got. Even split here, where we've got 44% on each for the different uses and then 12% with other uses. So that's good for us to know. We may need to iterate on this a little bit so that we can come back, or maybe do both. Let's do one more. Let's do two more actually for right now, and then we can get back to some questions. So we've gotten some ideas from folks about how they want to kind of make the Navigator their own, and you know, make it from just a research database that doesn't change from user to user to something that's a little bit more specific to the user. So some people have asked if they can annotate pages or give notes, or you know, be able to save information that only they would be able to view, but it kind of summarizes their thinking so that they don't have to kind of reanalyze every time. Or we've had some people wonder if there should be a community forum. They want to be able to connect with other users, be able to engage with them, kind of share insights or ideas. And maybe there are other ways to change the Navigator to make it a little bit more of your own. So take a look, think about it, see if this is something that you think would be more or less useful for you. And we'll take a look at the results in a few seconds. Okay, so I'm going to close this and we'll take a look at the results. So we've got interesting little kind of reverse step ladder here, where more people are interested in annotating slightly than a community forum, but there's other ways. A lot of people include identifying other ways. I would love to get those ideas so that we can, like I said, personalize this and upgrade it that would best serve you. So put those in the chat box. One more for right now, and this relates actually to a question that we had earlier. So hopefully the person who asked that question, and maybe others who are interested in exporting or PDFing, that you let us know what would be useful. You could either, we've gotten two different ideas from some of our users. One is generate or export a PDF of the disclosure profile. So what are they disclosing on? What's the quality? How does that compare to the industry? Or the kind of cross-sector search results. I want to see what the financial drivers are for the industries I look at, and all of the topics, or just some of the topics, and be able to kind of take that analysis and share that with colleagues, or keep for my own reference, or things like that. Maybe there's other PDF exports or other types of exports that would be useful, and if that's the case, hit other and chime in with ideas. So we'll give people a few more seconds to vote, and then we're going to turn over and see if we have any new questions, and then we may end early. Alrighty, last few seconds. We have an even number of people, and so sometimes these numbers end up, you know, kind of neck and neck. But let's take a look. So slightly edging out being able to look at the disclosure profile as opposed to the cross-sector search. Maybe we need to balance both of those. Not many other ideas out there. So maybe less so of kind of a priority. Let's see if there's a couple questions, or one question at least.
Yes, we got a couple more questions here. So this one may be beyond the scope of the Navigator, but perhaps could be tied in as well. Are there any feedback mechanisms to communicate to companies from parties who would use this information to make tangible decisions regarding their investments? For example, I bought shares due to your excellent disclosure, or I did not buy shares due to your lousy disclosure.
Well, I think it depends on the type of investor you are, whether you're a retail investor, somebody who is just investing in your retirement or kind of doing things individually, or obviously if you're a analyst or PM as an institutional investor, you know, there's probably different reporting channels, but I would imagine that the investor relation folks are a good outlet at specific companies. So usually every publicly listed company has an investor relations page with contact information, so you can kind of reach out to them that way. So that would be my recommendation. There may be other ways to do that, and I don't know all of them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of the data that lives in the Navigator could serve as a communication tool. You can kind of point to it and say, here's the evidence that we have. I want you to be, you know, disclosing on this or engaging in this sort of way.
Yeah, what we have heard from some of our users is that they're using this to inform their engagement efforts with the companies they've already invested in, just as a dialogue to kind of open up and think about to what extent what they're seeing makes sense, or maybe there's room for improvement. It's a good place to start, I think.
Great. So we have one more question. How is the feedback reviewed when excerpts are identified differently than the app has identified?
That's a great question. So there's a bit of a manual process where when we get that feedback, we take a look at it. We have some of the experts who are used to looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of 10Ks, kind of do a gut check and a human check. And then if we agree with the feedback, then we'll work with our technology team to retrain the algorithm. And it's not always going to reflect it overnight, but there is kind of a process by which it gets smarter and smarter. So I think we probably have a couple more questions, but let's move to 2 more polls, because this is really about helping us prioritize what you just gave us feedback on, so that we can, again, build this better and brighter future based on what you're telling us. So we basically looked at 4 different ideas over the last few polls. We had comparisons, and some of you said which comparisons were better. We had an import feature, and some of you said which was better. We had annotation or forums, so that's kind of a personalization feature, and exporting or generating PDF. So of those 4, you know, depending on which option or other option we go within each of those individually, of those kind of as a unit, if you think about them as different types of features, which is going to be most important to you? Or maybe there's other, and again, enter ideas in the chat box. This is for your benefit so that we can continue to improve. So we've got a number of you who have weighed in. Still a few outstanding, so I'm going to pause for a second and let you type in what you think is most useful. All right, so I'm about to close that, so if you haven't voted, go ahead and let us know so we can adjust accordingly. So we have half of you wanting a comparison feature. The next best is generating, exporting PDFs, and then after that is importing, and the personalization and other, none at all. So that's really helpful. Make sure that we're prioritizing correctly. So let's do one more. This is really good for us to respond to you guys and build it the way you want. So let's say what's second most important to you. So if you said comparing first, last time, put something else this time. What is it that's next most important? There's the last poll, and this is going to be informing our product roadmap and our strategy for the next few months, which we're meeting on next week. So this is very timely, and you get to choose. I feel like I'm on a game show where it's like, you have the power. I hope at least somebody laughed on the other line. I'm drawing a lot of smirks from the people in the room with me. You know, we've been together on this webinar for 55 minutes. It's might as well time to have a little fun. All right. Before we go crazy and I get yelled at, let's close this poll and take a look at the results. Okay, so for the second most important feature to use, still the comparison. So that's really kind of a message coming through loud and clear, but then also right behind it is generating, exporting PDF. So we maybe had those two people switch from one to the other over the last two. So that's really interesting for us to see. Thank you for your help with that. So we've got last couple minutes. Is there a final question or two? Doesn't look like it. Well, hopefully we've answered your questions. Let me go back to the slide and show you our email. Remind you that we're going to be sending out a recording. You can sign up for your trial on the navigator.sasb.org website. If you're an enterprise user who wants to sign up multiple people, go ahead and email us. We'll get you the details you need. And we'll be happy to help answer any other questions that you have. Keep a lookout for what updates we're going to be making in the coming months, in large part based on what you just told us. So thank you for joining us on behalf of Jill, Andreas, who have been in the room helping me, and myself. We really appreciate you spending some time with us, and let us know if we can help you with any other Navigator questions in the future. Enjoy the rest of your day.